What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Bless. We got Rickey D in the building. Lemme-Kno, of course. And this is the M.O.T podcast, first and foremost. Thank you for coming, my brother.
Man, it's always a pleasure.
Not only is this long overdue, but I'm excited to have you.
Oh,
so,
man,
respect.
100%, man, you know?
Respect.
We go back a minute.
We do go back a few minutes, a few lifetimes.
True that.
Pretty much more than half of my lifetime. I grew up hearing about this gentleman, you know, being passionate about hip hop, wanting to get into the scene as a very young kid. The name that would always pop up was Rickey D, sometimes Gary T, sometimes Shaheed, but always Rickey D, no matter what, first and foremost.
Well, you know, I was consistently in love with this hip hop game.
Yup. And we were talking off camera. Right. My co-host Lemmy asked you, you know, Rickey, did you ever try your hand at emceeing?
Hell no, man. I got a little, like, how can I say, old school rap that I do that's super corny. That, like, it doesn't even make sense.
It's like, I'm Ricky Daly. Fuck you, pay me.
You know, it's like this. It's like, how's it go? I'm Rickey D from Little Burgundy. Rock Shock, y'all. That's it. Like
that's it.
That's it.
That's the intro. That's the intro.
That was it. That was it. You know.
That's the intro.
I was never, you know, Bless. As much as I love hip hop,
of course, I
decided, you know, I wanted to focus more on the business side of things. Loving the show, loving the magic that it brings. I felt like, you know, especially back then, hip hop was, you know, in its infancy.
That's right.
You know, it was coming into Canada. We're all bringing it in from New York, listening to Mr. Magic Rap Attack.
Mr. Magic Marley Marl. Let my tape rock till my tape pop.
This is it. So
actually, I got the biggie on right now. See, that was subconscious. That was.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah, you know. So that's how I got into it. You know, we were just going down there visiting family in New York, hearing all this amazing music, and then, you know, being put on by some of the elder statesmen, guys like Butcher T and these guys who were playing it in the dance halls.
Butcher T.
Exactly.
See, Bless comes from the old school.
You know, Keith and Karen, WD, Ronnie Love. These are the kind of guys who were, you know, older than me, bringing it to Montreal, right? So I was just out. DJ Ray was another one that was, I was just, you know, Mike Williams. He helped bring in with Butcher T, like one of the first hip hop shows in Canada.
Which was?
That was Club 980 CKGM AM.
Okay.
So it started on AM because back then there was no FM.
Yeah.
Nobody was listening to FM. FM came about in like the early 80s. It started to come about, but AM was still number one.
Wow, dope.
So, you know, we were all, you know, on there, and I used to go and hang with Flight and DJ Ray and all these guys. And
what year was this around?
Say about 82.
Nice.
82, 83.
And who was the station that we're playing, like?
CKGM, which is now 990.
Okay.
The sports station.
Yeah.
That's the frequency.
So I used to play hip hop and shit.
Yeah, he used to have a show called Club 980. And Mike Williams, who later graduated and went to Much Music and started everything at Much Music. He was the pioneer, one of the original VJs on Much Music.
Amazing.
Left here. He was originally from Cleveland, Ohio.
Dope.
He came up here. You know, as usual, when Americans come up here, it's because some Canadian girl got them. So they came up here.
They're not here for the money.
Right. So that's how he came into the city, and he managed to convince CKGM, which was light years ahead,
of course,
and to put this show on.
Decades ahead.
Yeah, decades. And the show like blew up. It blew up, and it helped to inspire hip hop across Canada.
Rickey, what were you allowed to play back then?
Huh?
Like, what were you allowed to play? What was the censorship rules? Like, what were you guys playing?
Well, you know, back then hip hop was not about censorship. There wasn't a lot of swearing back then. It was party jams.
It was party music.
It was all about party music.
See, that's a common misconception that, you know, although hip hop obviously comes from the streets and was birthed with all the elements of, you know, everything that was going on, all the wildness in the late 70s, early 80s and gang culture. However, early hip hop was party music.
That's all it was.
That's what it was. And the MC was exactly that.
That's the guy who just rocked the party.
He was the guy who was working with and for the DJ. He was not the front man.
That's right.
Right. So, and then the whole thing about emceeing, which, you know, a lot of people maybe, you know, we might know, but a lot of younger cats might not know that there was no such thing as a sampler.
No.
So they used to manually loop the break, which was just the first, you know, couple seconds where there was, you know, no vocals.
So much work.
And then cats started to rap on that.
Right,
and then that's what, you know,
we would get the mixtapes from back in New York, bring them up here, study what they were doing.
Of course.
And then we started to emulate it here in Montreal.
Even much later, I used to do the same thing. I'd go uptown, get like, you know, 5 tapes for $10 or $15, whatever it was, and then I'd bootleg them myself with the double cassette deck. I'd photocopy them off in the library at my school, and then I'd put them on consignment at Taboo Disc where I used to see this gentleman.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And yo, they used to sell those tapes for $20 a pop in the mid '90s. So as a young kid, if I could make $150 from dropping some rap music at a fucking boutique, I was balling.
Oh man, you know, the money was good. You know, expenses were cheap.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So it was like, you know,
and the culture was still young.
got you far.
Bro, $10, bro. $5. You had the Palace, $2.50 for a movie.
That's right.
And then you had the two slices and a can of Coke for $2. You still had like a 50 cent left over. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. So that's what happened. So we started to bring it up, and then we started to encourage. You know, started doing our own parties like in the community centers, NDG Community Center, NCC, which was Negro Community Center in Little Burgundy, LaSalle Community Center.
See, I remember
Cotonage Community Center.
I remember back then, hip hop events were largely in high schools, community centers, churches, stuff like that.
Eventually, what happened is that, you know, at the beginning we were just doing parties, building up our confidence and building up our understanding of the music.
These parties were pretty big from what I remember here. I was too young then, but I mean, I remember they were getting probably to a point where they're better than a lot of parties now, because I feel like the movement was so young and exciting that everybody went. Like when you guys did something,
it was incredible, because back then there was no colored barrier. Now I find hip hop is so segmented. And, you know, you got the white folks over there rocking it. You got the black folks over there rocking it. You got the Filipinos over here, the East Indians. Everybody's rocking onto their own little clique. But back then, if you wanted that music, you had to come to us because we were the source.
That's right.
If you didn't come to us, then you weren't getting it, because and only limited record stores would sell it. Like Sam the Record Man, he started to get into it a bit, and he started to play. Phantasmagoria was another one that started. Right. But, you know,
Mike's Records.
Right. Well, Mike's Records in Cotonage, and Downtown Records on Stanley Street, and then Taboo. And all
on St. Catherine, under where the Aldo is now or whatever.
So now they were the ones who really, you know, started to bring in what I call the real hip hop, and they started to bring it everywhere, because, you know, Sam and them, they were touching more of the commercial stuff, the Rapper's Delights, which was coming more commercial, even though it wasn't being played on radio up here. It was still commercial enough.
We were always and still are late to the party when it came to hip hop, commercially, on commercial radio.
Yes.
And I imagine that was a huge challenge for you guys, because you probably only really had stations like CKUT that was an outlet.
They came later. CKUT came around 87 with the Sound Supreme show, which Flight used to host with LDG. And that was a breakthrough show, because once Mike left, CKGM closed the doors. And there was no more Club 980 anymore. It was over. There was nobody to take it and run with it, because I don't know why. I don't know what happened with Mike and them, but that door closed. And then Flight, Keith and Karen, and LDG created this show called the Sound Supreme Show, which was just bananas at that time. Really, really street culture.
Dope.
It was insane, and Flight was considered to be a genius at that time, you know, because his ability to hold it down on the mic on the radio show, not just as a host but as an MC, was retarded.
I remember one of the first shows I ever did was not even as an MC. It was as a b-boy, as a dancer. And I used to rock with Angelo.
Yes.
Remember Angelo Amur?
Yes.
Shout out to him. So that was kind of my beginnings, pre even calling myself Bless. And I remember one of the first big shows we did was at La Voix High School. It was a crazy talent show, 91 or 92. I was about 7 years old.
Crazy.
Angelo brought me up there. Gary T was there, and Flight was hosting it. So these are like my earliest childhood memories.
Yeah, well, you know, so how I got into the business is, my best friend who lived with me in City Housing in Little Burgundy, he used to live right on top of me. I was apartment 3, he was apartment 6. And
Where in Burgundy?
I lived on the corner of Richmond Street and Saint Jacques.
I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, right there, and I grew up there.
Very gentrified now.
Yeah, everything is
that beautiful church there on the left.
Yes. I actually used to go to that church.
Of course.
Many years ago. So that's how I got started. My friend was a DJ, but he didn't want to hand out no flyers. He was like, you know, he just wanted to kick it with the ladies and, you know, get the money and rock a party, and that was
Don't
it.
we all?
Yeah, he didn't want to do.
But that's not what it takes to become Rickey D.
Right.
That's a fact.
So, you know, I couldn't rap, I couldn't sing, I couldn't dance, but I wanted to be in.
Of course.
So I figured there was a way for me to get in, and it was through flyering. Okay. So I started to hand out flyers. I became very good at it. I was everywhere.
I can imagine your personality is very well suited to the old school street promotion, getting out there and talking to people, which is so important for this culture. And I think now people think they could fly over that with social media.
True.
But I think sometimes they don't realize social media should just be a door to do what you've been doing for a long time.
I totally agree. You know, they hide behind the camera and they hide behind these clips, and they base their whole lives on likes.
Yeah, you could do that, but I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, like that's a great tool to open the conversation, but you need to still break bread with people. You need to get to know people and vibe with them.
You gotta shake their hands.
1000%.
You gotta look in there, because when you're building a like on social media, I'm building a like on the streets that's gonna like me forever.
That's right.
So there's a different mindset there. Somebody could like something you do, but they're not really into you.
100%.
But when they see you and they catch your vibe and they understand where you're at,
you can always break bread.
They're always forever.
That's right.
You can also use social media as an advantage to get a scope and then find out if this person's actually who they say they are. You know what I mean? It's
not really, though.
It's almost like but it's almost like an intro.
Not really, because social media is so scripted and so fake.
That's right.
The people are showing the highlights. How come I've never seen a clip of when the rent is due and they're having trouble coming up with that? I never saw that, though. I never saw that.
It's a lot of smoke and mirrors, right?
It's all smoke and mirrors.
You know what I mean? And how you really build a real fan base. People don't realize, right, is that you can have 100,000 likes, but if nobody from your hood knows who you are, then who the hell are you?
That's a fact.
Hold on. Wait, guys. I have to interject. I agree with you, Ricky, that was the way. But now,
that's still the way. Let me ask you something. If you're pretending to be something on social media, right, Lemmy?
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
And you go in your own
like your way
city,
better.
and you go in your own city after pretending to be something on social media and posting all of this fake impressive shit, and nobody knows who you are a real nobody.
Mm-hmm. You need to earn your credibility among your peers. When I was out there handing out flyers, you know, putting the grind in, putting the work in at the clubs 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, from a Wednesday to a Sunday for over 20 some odd years, just kicking it with my folks, right? Now you put the work in. So now when you do this thing, people know who you are, and they come out and they show you the love.
And they know they're not going to get ripped off. And they know that the money's safe if they invest. And they know they could buy tickets and not have to worry about getting, you know, because a big thing back then is a lot of people would hop in and hop out and use this promotions thing as a quick hustle and rip people off.
I'll give an example. The president of the United States, when he's up for election, what does he do? He goes out there and shakes the hands of his people.
Campaigns.
So you know what, Bless? You ain't bigger than the people that shake your hand.
I agree with
that.
So
when you go and you realize that, that's when you get over.
I agree with you 100%. And in a promotion aspect, you have to be in the streets. What I'm talking about is the actual artist. Does the artist have to be there?
The artist got to go out there and shake the hands
saying.
because the president is the artist.
That's right.
You got to go and shake the hands. You got to go out there. You can't hide in your corners and then think that by you just showing them little snippets of you, that's going to get you through the doors. You need to go, right? When somebody calls and they say, you know this guy Bless in Montreal? I say, yeah, I know him. He's 100% certified. You see? But if I don't know him, how am I going to certify him? So I need to be able to feel him. So that doesn't mean you sit out there and you're at the corner all day, every day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you know,
or you should be a caveman and not have social media.
Right.
We're not saying that.
Exactly.
But I think people get carried away and miss a few steps. And I think Rickey D is the foremost expert to talk about this. Everybody wants to get in the game. They think what Rickey D does is glamorous, right? They see him, with Snoop. They see him bringing whoever, and they say, wow, I want a piece of that, right? But they want to skip the steps that Rickey D did, and that's why
no one's been doing it like
you
that.
have a Johnny Come Lately producer, promoter every fucking month. He comes around, fucks up a show, turns people off, makes us look bad, and then what happens? They got to call Rickey D back and say, we need somebody who could do this right.
Yeah, sometimes, I'm not telling you in my career I haven't dropped eggs. I wouldn't be here if I didn't drop eggs. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of the business we're in. There's a million ways for something to drop. So you just got to try to have a handle on everything. Sometimes it's beyond your control. I get it. I got that. My thing is that if you're a young promoter, you want to come in the big, it's to stay in power. It's when somebody puts a knock in your head, can you get up? That's, to me, is the true hallmark of a person who wants it.
That's right.
Okay? Can you go and sustain a $5,000 loss, a $10,000, a $20,000, and come back? Bro, I made 2 homes and I've lost 2 homes.
I believe it.
You understand?
And I know enough about this business to understand that, first of all, the most important thing is consistency as a promoter. And if you're a guy like Rickey who's in this for 20 plus years, the big boys know that they can entrust, because if you break even or you lose, they could break bread with you on the next one, and so on and so forth.
They know that I'm good for my money, and not only am I good for my money, I'm good for my work, and I'm not going to jerk them around.
And you're not going anywhere.
And I'm not going anywhere.
And that comes back to what he was saying off of social media. We don't know who some weirdo is just because he's posting pictures with bottles and flicking it up with 1 or 2 celebrities. We don't know. That dude could just shut that account off.
You know something? That whole celebrity picture thing is super corny.
But we come from an era where that was like a no-no.
Yo, bro,
you didn't ask no artist.
I give you your money and I say, hit the stage. I don't want to talk to you.
Let me ask you a question. How many pictures do you imagine Rickey D could have with anybody who's anybody, bringing hundreds of celebrities a year for 25
Who's the one?
years?
Who's
there
the one?
You go.
The one I had from then was Eminem.
Okay.
That was it.
And you asked for it?
No.
Just happened. Somebody
just
took
happened.
it.
I was there.
I just want to know if you broke the
Eminem
code or
punked
not.
off my partners back then. They were terrified of him, but he recognized I was street. Street recognized street no matter where you are.
Always.
When they can feel your vibe. They know guys who are just in it because it's a business, and they understand guys who are in it because they're part of the culture. And they're part of the business.
Facts.
You see what I'm saying?
Preach, bro.
So he understood that because he punked them off. He was like, yo, I don't...
When you say punked them, what did
He didn't take no pictures with them. He's like, nah, I don't want to take. I said, yo, what's up, man? Yo, what's up? We good? Can I get one with you? Or what? What's the word?
He was like,
All
yeah,
right, come on, let's do this. And they did it, and boom. And that was spontaneous because normally, I brought people from the Roots. I brought Nas here.
Of course.
I brought them all, man. B. Common.
Were you
when he
part
was
of that?
Common Sense.
Were you? Oh my God, Resurrection. I used to love her. Come on.
You know what I mean?
They don't need to know about all that.
But, Big Daddy Kane.
Oh my! Talk about Big Daddy.
D.
Is it you who brought Big Daddy Kane? That rare footage that I saw floating around.
For James Lane?
Yes.
I did that with Gary T.
Bro.
Gary T.
Do you know how legend that?
That's my uncle.
Do you know Gary T was the first one who managed me when I was a child?
He was incredible.
Gary T is still incredible.
I can't sit in this chair and not pay homage to that man.
Oh, I was getting to him. Don't worry.
He's one of the guys who put the G in the game for me and showed me how to go get that. When I first started, like I said, I was doing parties and I was filling up rooms, making some money. And then Gary came to me and said, you want to, start doing some shows. And I figured, well, if I'm doing parties, why can't I do shows?
Do you remember when Coolio exploded? Is it you guys who were bringing Coolio?
Well, we did Coolio at the medley and it was empty. Imagine, it was that I called the Coolio effect. What happened with Coolio is that white people thought he was too thugged out and they were scared to come near. And the black folks thought he was too weird and soft.
And corny.
So
commercial.
nobody, corny. And so nobody came.
They parted the seas.
Yeah,
like
part of the seas. It was empty. Me and Gary was sitting there taking that loss.
I remember I was a kid. I might have been like 10 years old. And Gary, I used to go to the record store, see Gary, boom, 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 spit for him, whatever. He was like, yo, we need to do something.
Yeah.
And he's like, yo, maybe I'll get you to open for Coolio. Man, I was calling Gary. You know, when you're a kid, you have nothing else to do. You're like watching much music. Like, damn, I want to get on this Coolio show. But man, shout out to Gary T and shout out to you for all your contributions, man. Like for real, like were you part of that Biggie show?
I was gonna ask, thank you, Bless.
Man, that Biggie show, man.
Yeah.
Please, Ricky,
let me tell you the story with that.
Yes.
So Biggie originally came maybe a year before that to Toronto for a guy named Tony Burntface. Tony Burntface was burnt 3 parts of his body, but his face was burnt, so we call him Tony Burntface.
I love that.
What I mean?
That's excellent.
So that was his name.
It's like a mafia movie.
He brought him to Toronto. It was sold out, but there was no security. The fans were the security. So some guys took the mic out of Biggie's hands and started rapping. So Biggie came down with like 2 guys.
Little C's.
And he backed out of the door and he left. Fast forward now. Here comes the new show. Gary comes to me.
Sorry, is this years?
No, maybe about a year.
A year.
Or less than a year. Comes back with the Ready to Die. So Gary came to me. He said, yo, Ricky, you want to get in on this Notorious B.I.G.?
You're like, fuck
I'm
yeah.
like, no. I went, no, man, I don't want to get into it, man. I'm not feeling it. She's like, are you crazy? Nah, I don't know where my head was. But sometimes that happens. You miss them, right?
Yeah.
So now Gary's doing the show. Show sells out.
2 seconds.
He says to me, I told you to get in it. I'm like, okay, I understand. I'm cool. No problem. Just take care of me. I'll come in there. I'm going to drink and enjoy myself. That's it. So now he calls me and he says, Ricky, I need you. I said, what's going on? He says, I need you to go to Plattsburgh because Biggie doesn't want to come into Canada.
And he's stuck at Plattsburgh?
He's stuck in Plattsburgh.
They drove?
What happened, they drove in a tour bus, and Biggie brought up all of his gangster friends.
He's coming to Canada ready this time.
Yeah, he's, they got guns in the thing.
They couldn't
place they couldn't cross. Now, the Canadian government wants to deport one of the guys back to the Dominican Republic. The guy's freaking the fuck out. They fucking want to finger search him, cavity search, this, that, dogs, the full fucking 9.
Yeah, you coming on a tour bus to Canada
full
strapped.
9 with like, with like killers, right? Guys who just
in
came out
94,
the band.
95, whenever
So
it was?
yeah, so now in his mind,
He felt like he got punked off in Canada. Fuck that, I'm coming ready.
Right. So that's how his mentality was. So we were staying at the Super 8 Motel just outside of Plattsburgh. So I grabbed 2 girls I knew pretty big banging, beautiful women. To entice them to come back with us. So I get to the hotel, the motel, I should say. So I'm there now. I go and I speak to his tour manager.
Who was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember his name. All I remember is he had a shotgun blast thing where he was stitched.
Biggie?
No. His tour
manager. Okay.
Came to the door. Guy looked like he just came out of prison.
Yeah.
Right? And he had like a shotgun blast,
Yeah.
Fucking gut was gone kind of thing. But fucking dieseled out. So I'm talking to him. I'm saying, yo, we need to get him into Canada. We got a sold out show. Everybody's waiting. I got some bitches. How we going to do this? So he's like, yo, Chris ain't coming. the Canada. I was like, come on, let's make this happen. Let's make this happen. You know,
goes
I'm
right to
pushing,
the
And if
border
anybody
and-
could do that,
I'm pushing
you were
for
like
it.
Muhammad Ali with Saddam Hussein. You know that
man.
story? Muhammad Ali, Saddam
No,
Hussein. Not
nah.
to take you. They supposedly, not to divert. We're going right back. There was a hostage crisis with Bush Senior.
Okay.
And he was like locking all Americans, like nobody could go. And then they were like, "Yo, it's gonna be a war if you don't release these Americans." This is like pre-Gulf War or whatever. And he was like, "Yeah, only if Muhammad Ali comes." And Muhammad Ali flew to Baghdad and negotiated the release of the American hostages.
Incredible.
Personally.
Wow.
Talking about being a man of the people.
This is it.
Back to Biggie.
So I went. So now he couldn't make it happen. So he paged the manager. Manager called. So I'm speaking to the manager now. Yo, we need to make this happen. Da, 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 da. I got some broads. So he said, listen, you think you can make Chris go? Chris as in Biggie. And then he told the tour manager, take me to his room. So I come to the room.
Ricky, are you solo?
No, I'm with the two girls.
Okay.
So we get to the
Two girls, 4 titties.
Right.
That's it. And Ricky
With
D.
the tour manager, right? Knocks on the door. You see this hulking guy come to the door, opens the door. It's him. I see a bit of, soon I didn't know who she was, but it was Faith Evans.
Wow.
But I didn't know it was Faith in the back.
When
Right?
you're with two girls trying to get Biggie out of the room.
Right. So I said to
Now
him,
we really can't
I
go.
said to him, yo, let's, come, we're waiting for you. It's sold out. Just come get in the car. We got, we got room for you. We brought a special vehicle for you and your tour manager. Let's do this. And he just looked at me and he said, fuck Canada, and he slammed the door.
Wow.
And I went, and then the guy said, I told you Chris wasn't going to come. I said, oh, fuck. So then I went back to the hotel. And I called Gary. It was at the World on Mount Cam and St. Catherine, which at that time wasn't a gay club. And I called Gary and I said, Gary, it's not happening. And I'm going home. I'm not coming there. Click. Next minute, the fucking streets were on fire. They smashed the windows. They tore up cars. They went fucking ballistic.
Why?
Because he didn't make it into Canada.
They
People
rioted.
really
They
wanted
rioted.
they
Really?
rioted.
The fans
Yeah,
here
the fans
I-
Tore
rioted.
everything apart.
Tore
It was on the
everything apart,
news.
yeah.
And this made the hip hop scene look even worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because the powers that be were always against us
Yeah,
having
I
this.
have a
right.
question. Why did he go all the way to Plattsburgh just to say no?
Because no, he went
They
to the
got
border.
refused.
He got refused at the border because he had all his boys with the guns,
Yeah,
and now he's
exactly.
standing there. But like you're telling him, like leave the guns and the drugs and your homies,
but
Now you're not
and come with me.
understanding.
Like, I didn't really get like
Biggie's thing was, I'm not coming if I got to leave my peoples behind.
That's right.
He was being loyal to them.
Gotcha.
So he said, I don't give a fuck about the money. I don't give a fuck about the show. If my peoples can't rock with me, I'm not going even if
And
you
he
can.
just had a bad experience in Toronto.
There's no way you're getting it.
Right. And then on top of that, his guys are getting bum surged. They're getting fucking dogs. They're getting cavity surged. One's about to get deported.
Yeah.
So he's feeling like Canada is seriously disrespecting him and his crew.
Right?
Right.
Exactly.
So no matter what kind of pussy I brought or what kind of money was on the table, he wasn't coming.
And in his defense, even if he wanted to, which obviously he didn't, but even if he had wanted to, like he would have been totally done with his peoples had he
right.
gone and been like, oh, for a
Maybe.
bag, I'm just willing to throw you guys all
Right.
under the bus, literally.
That I don't know, but
But I just feel like
right,
that
could have
was
been the
yeah, that's a
his
that's a fair
mentality.
assessment.
You know what I'm saying?
Most probably.
If me
know
and
what
you
I
were
mean?
going to New York together for a
That's
bunch of
right.
meetings and you don't make it because
That's it.
you have a problem at the border or the label or whatever disrespects you and you set up
it.
the meeting, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, thanks, Ricky. I'll see you
That's
back
it.
in Montreal. You'll be like, yo, this dude's a piece of shit. Like,
Well, that's it. So he was like that kind of guy.
Yeah.
So when he said that to me,
you knew it was like,
Yeah, it
there's
was
no
That's a
done.
point.
stand-up
It's over.
dude then.
Huh?
That's a stand-up guy at that point. You can't be mad at him, right?
Well,
Like
I wasn't mad. I just told Gary I'm not coming there.
Well, it wasn't his show, so he was just trying to, use his talents to try and finagle whatever he could to save the
Gary's my
situation.
boy. Even though I didn't come in on the show, it didn't mean I didn't support it. I didn't
Sure.
have love for it. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I would do anything for hip hop if need be.
Where's Gary now?
Gary's still around. He's still doing his thing.
I bumped into him recently.
Yeah, he's living in NDG, working, got a job.
Okay. And
what I'm
has he
saying?
done shows in the
No,
last?
he's out of that. He lost appetite 3 years ago.
But he was there before you, so
Yeah,
you're
but-
talking like even pre-hip hop
Yeah,
he's dating.
Yeah, he was.
He's
there-
70s,
Yeah, he was doing it like early 80s.
early 80s.
Yeah, he was doing the early 80s, and then he brought me in around the mid 80s. I was doing parties in like the 82, 83. I was doing parties.
And what kind of stuff was spinning back then?
Oh, well,
Like you said party music, but like I'm curious, like
well, yeah, there was a lot of disco, there was a lot of soul going on, and that was the music that was really being played. You know, you had a lot of roller skating places like Caesar Palace in LaSalle.
in Montreal, really?
Yeah, you had one called Caesar Palace, the Requiotech in Laval.
I remember.
Yeah, that's still open, I think.
Requiotech still exists.
Yeah. You know, you had Le Track in Côte-Neige on Victoria and I think Lavoie, just below Spicy's there. Just before you go underneath the underpass on your right.
Near Côte-Neige Plaza.
Yeah, there was around there, back there, there was there were warehouses there right along the train tracks. So they used to have a place called Le Track, which was another, you know, and this is where hip-hop also got introduced because they started to bring it into the room in order to satisfy the kids who wanted to hear this music, and they didn't want to hear disco. They didn't want to hear Gloria Gaynor and all these others. They weren't into no Dancing Queen and all that shit. They want to hear something a little bit more
Funky.
authentic for what they were looking for. So this kind of forced them in order to start to change the music rotation, and by doing so, they got more and more kids into the room.
Speaking of that, tell me real quick about bringing Big Daddy Kane for the first time to James Lang High School.
That was an experience and a half.
I can imagine.
No, that was an experience.
That was dangerous.
No, man, it was cool. You know, Big Daddy was. All these guys.
Big Daddy was smooth, bro.
Yeah,
he was a ladies' man. He wasn't bringing no gangster.
But you think of high school, like security wise, and just like who can cut
James
right?
Lane. You know, thank you, James Lane. Thank you. What's the other school up there? Up on, damn, man. Marymount.
Okay.
Marymount. You know.
See?
These are the schools that we started going to afterwards because, you know, when you started to do shows, you needed bigger capacities. At the beginning, we were doing the community centers.
Right.
The black community centers in Montreal in the west end of the city. And then once we started to get into the shows, we started to go into these places.
Gotcha.
And we started to do the high schools because only the high schools would rent to us. You know, there wasn't Metropolis back then was a nightclub. It wasn't even a venue at that time.
But let me ask you, these high schools, which are obviously government, you know, buildings or whatever, they weren't like weary or apprehensive to rent it to you guys for a hip hop.
They weren't really government. That's where they were like, you know,
privately
the
run.
Private, you know, you had the Protestant school board.
Okay.
The English school board.
So they just needed the money and they were like, we'll
you know,
take it.
And they were people that were closer to you than, say, you know, some French entity sitting in Quebec City telling you no.
I got you.
They were people from the community
that you could talk to.
And they saw
once again, they were accessible.
They saw it as a way of giving the kids an opportunity to get off the streets and you know what I mean.
So they were supportive.
They were supportive to a certain degree. They were supportive. Plus, they could use the extra cash.
So money talked basically. Money talked.
Yeah.
So how did that? I mean, I saw that footage. It must have been '88. Big Daddy Kane, James Lang. It was so dope.
It was, you know, those days it was beautiful, you know, and I had such an amazing time, you know, and working with guys like Gary and them was, you know, a real eye opener, and that was also the beginning of working with one of my dear friends, a guy named Perry Giannis. Remember Perry, the Greek guy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started working with him with Public Enemy in 1988 with William Morris. William Morris at that time, Cara Lewis.
That was Guru's agent.
Right. She was like the agent to hip-hop. Yeah. Like, if you were serious in the hip-hop game, Lewis she had you. Mm-hmm. And when she had you, she delivered. Mm-hmm. You know, there was all these other agents who eventually came about in the mix from different agencies and all of that, but a lot of them were like janky, shit was sketchy.
Cara Lewis, the agency group.
Right. She was at, you know, Warner Music. She was at Warner Music.
Originally.
Yeah, not Warner Music, excuse me, William Morris.
Sorry. And then she went to the agency later?
No, now she went to CAA.
Oh, that's right.
And then from CAA, she has her own agency now, which is called the Cara Lewis Agency Group. Mm-hmm. So she was legit. So she started giving us a lot of these shows. I remember one time we got Cypress Hill.
Nice.
Didn't know much about Cypress Hill, and we knew a bit about him because we were starting to filter through. Mm-hmm. And she sent us the artwork. And the artwork was this big weed emblem.
Sure.
Right? A marijuana leaf. And we're like, yo, we can't use this. And she said, use the fucking thing. Okay, we're going to use it. So we used it, sold them out.
Wow.
Sold them out.
You didn't have problems with the cops and all that bullshit?
No.
Let me ask you, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear from, not just from those days, but in general, what have been some of the biggest challenges you've faced advocating hip hop, bringing these shows? What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced?
Some of the biggest challenges back then was just getting them across the border and learning the business. You know, we didn't have mentors. We didn't have people that were older than us that knew the game. You see, like now I can mentor a kid that's coming up in the business if they're serious. But back then, there was none of that. So we didn't understand how to get people into Canada. We didn't understand paperwork. We didn't understand criminal records.
Of course.
We didn't understand anything. We liked you. We called the agency. We bought you. That was it. You know, so that was a major, major hurdle back then. You still have it to this day. You know, less of it because we're more knowledgeable. We understand the paperwork that's required to get you into the country.
Sure.
And even sometimes that don't even work. But, you know, the problem is that now they can go and Google your name.
Mm.
Back then, there was no Googling anything. There was no web.
That's right.
So they didn't really know who you really were unless your name flagged up. Mm-hmm. So as long as we started to understand the game and did the paperwork, they would be cool with it. They wouldn't be able to go and look and see if you said something yesterday or you did something over here because shit is spontaneous. Now that's what they do. They sit up there, they look not only at what you did yesterday, but they're looking at what you're doing today and tomorrow. So it becomes a lot more trickier. So if you're an artist that did things in the past and kept it in the past, that's cool. We can get you in. But if you're one of these guys like a Kodak Black,
who's running around causing stories,
you know what I mean?
They're not trying to have it.
Right. You know what I mean? They Google you today, they look and say, yo, you just did this, you just did that. Why should we let you in? So that was a major problem. Also, major problem was getting venues. Because of the violence that was associated with hip-hop, the street gangs, the thuggery and everything, because that's what it evolved into. A lot of venues didn't want to put on these shows, or if they did. At one time, we were banished from Metropolis. Andre Menard and them from the Jazz Fest and them would not let us do a show in there for like at least 10 years.
Wow.
What caused that?
Wyclef Jean.
Wyclef.
We did Wyclef, and we sold them out, but there was another 2,000 people outside who wanted to get in, so they started fighting outside. So they
associated that to...
Right, and then he just shut it all down. Like to the point I tried to bring in D'Angelo. And he wouldn't
an R&B singer.
He would, yeah, exactly. And he wouldn't even do it. I had to go to Cha Dunleavy and get Cha to write something up.
Shout out Cha Dunleavy.
Right.
Who are some of the best people in this city that you've worked with, club owners, that always accepted, that never had...
Supportive.
I'll tell you, some of them was...
That bias, because it's racially charged. I'm sorry.
The Metropolis was before the Jazz Fest got it.
Okay.
They were amazing. They used to have a guy in there. His name was Sean Pilot.
Okay.
Sean was one of these guys. He wore the same jeans every day for years. He used to have his scarf. He was known to be shooting heroin, but nobody could see the nails because he always wore the jacket. He was skinny, but he was brilliant. He was brilliant. He loved us, and he gave us access to his room, the Metropolis. So then, one day I saw Sean. I said, Sean, what are you doing now? He's with the Opera in Toronto.
Wow. Still
the same Sean, dressed the same, looks all funky, look like he hadn't bathed in weeks. So I said to him, Sean, give me a business card. How do I find you? He says, you want my business card? He says, okay. So he gives me his business card. So I take his business card and I look at it and I said, Sean, there's no phone number. There's nothing on it but your name. And he says, you know how to get in touch with me.
Wow.
And that was
sick. That's sick.
And
Good
that
for
was
him.
it. And I knew how to get in touch with him.
Yeah, if you need
So,
him.
It's
you
for
know,
those who know business.
Yeah,
cards.
you understand? So it wasn't like,
If you can get to me,
Yeah.
this is my name.
this
I like that.
Exactly.
That's kind of G.
Yeah.
That's
you know,
kinda G.
He was like, well, you know how to get to me. So I was like, yeah, I do.
You don't need the fucking card now.
So I took the card, put it in my pocket, and that was it. But that's the kind of eccentric guy he was.
Of course.
But he loved us. And then eventually he sold the Metropolis to them. They did the show with us. There was a woman named Michelle Neveu who retired eventually. She was like, did not want that music in there. And when the shit happened outside,
It was
it was a wrap. And then we lost that room for many years. We floated around doing different venues.
I have a question, Ricky.
Yeah.
You've been doing this obviously for your life, pretty much. And when you have to be that man consistently for that long, right? And it's been 20 something years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever want to say no to certain shows and you have to take them? Is
All
that
the
like part
time.
of it, right? Like,
I always have
is
to
that like
take
a
them.
necessity?
Kind of like if you want the retro J's, you got to sell the shitty ones.
You know,
right? Like I feel like
Right?
that's part
that's
of
how
like
Nike works.
I say like this, you know, it's like before you can get to the slim girl, you gotta have the fat girl, right? How many of us have screwed the fat girl in our lives
fair.
to get to the pretty skinny one? I'm not saying the fat girl wasn't pretty. Don't get it twisted.
No, well
She's
said.
just as
Well said.
pretty.
It's just what the situation
But
calls
it's just,
for.
you know, everybody wants the slim chick, right? Mm-hmm. But in order to get to her, you gotta fuck the fat one.
I like that.
Right? So I had to fuck a few fat ones in order to get the pretty one.
Hey,
and I'm
it
doing
is
it to
the
this
game.
day. I got a show right now.
Still
that I'm
taking one
gonna
for the
do.
team.
Right. You know, I got a show for Place Belle I'm going to do next year. And the guy has this other artist. He's jacking me up. And I got to do it. Because if I don't do it, I'm not going to get the next one.
Yeah.
Even though I did the next one before. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you're into me, I'm into you. You're going to make the money back at the next one.
It's always a give and take.
It's always, you know, you just can't get up there and think that you can just go in and be a prima donna and pick and choose
Right.
what you want.
You can't
know?
cherry pick in this game.
You know, not in my position. You know, if I was like an Eventco or something where now, you know, I can't do that because I'm buying, you know, X amount of shows from you per year, and you're into me.
So you're co-producing. I'm imagining a lot of different shows with different companies now, or
Yeah.
is it still largely just you and maybe an investor?
No,
Where are you
you
at?
know-
People
these days?
bring them in for full tours and then you buy one show? Or are
That's
you
it.
there before the tour even like accumulate?
A bit of both.
He buys the Montreal date.
I buy the Montreal.
But what I
date.
mean is, do you co-produce shows with Eventcos or companies like that?
Yes.
Sure.
What happens is a lot of times when I co-produce a show with Eventco, it's usually because I was the promoter of record.
Mm-hmm.
Eventco never brings me into a show unless I was the originator, the promoter of record. If they get the show first before I do, then they never bring me in.
Got you.
But
If you were the first one to deal with the artist
Right.
and the agent, and
Right.
they're like, we have this
Yes.
relationship with Ricky,
Yes.
you guys will do it together.
right, which is cool,
Which is
because-
very respectful.
Because a lot of guys wouldn't even give you the time of day.
Yeah, of course.
They tell you "fuck you,"
Props.
and that's it. And I'll go do
and
like that.
I think that speaks to the kind of business ethic and
Yes.
professionalism that
Yes.
Eventco has,
Yes.
which is why they're in power and deserve to be in power.
You know,
because
when-
we'd rather have people who know what the fuck they're doing.
Well, you know, a lot of those guys that are there that are now senior management. You know, they grew up in NDG.
they're
grew up
all
in
our people,
Westmont,
so-
right? They're guys who was booking ska and reggae back in the 80s.
Of course.
Like Dan Webster back in the 70s.
course.
You know, they're guys who get it. They're just gone a little bit corporate because that's just the name of the game and what they got to do. So they could do certain things, but there's certain things they cannot because they're caught up in that corporate game structure. But still, when there's an opportunity to break bread, they break bread. Or they'll come to me and they'll say, you know, Ricky, we got a show at the Bell Center. We'd like you to promote it for us. You know, like certain shows is beyond my capabilities money-wise that, you know, I can't invest into it. Like, I'll give an example. I had Rust. Russ is this artist that I brought here originally to Montreal.
Did he do Metropolis the first time?
No, he did Club Soda. Let me
Soda,
tell you a story with him. Had him. I knew nothing about this guy.
He sold out.
Whatever. And he was like, "You want to come to Canada?" Cara Lou sold him to me. Cara said, "Take the fucking show." I'm like, "Cara, I don't see nothing." She said, "Take the fucking show. It's going to pop."
Show.
His numbers are good.
Right?
That's
and
a good
I'm
show.
like, so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to put him in Club Soda.
Yeah.
So I put my event, and this is why Facebook is bullshit, right? And all of this is bullshit. You need to have a pulse on the streets.
That's right.
Because if you don't know what's up. I look at Facebook, 200 people attending. 200 people.
Sounds
You're
low.
like, oh fuck, this show needs to be at the Bellbot at 200 capacity room, 250.
You're like, I'm gonna get
right.
fucked.
I'm gonna get fucked. I'm gonna lose some G money here, right? Next minute, this guy just sold it out 2 days. I'm like, okay,
Because he had a strong core following.
right. So then I get a call from the agent. She said, move it up. I said, move it up, bring it to Olympia, 2,500 people. I said, all right, let's get it. You know what I mean? He just sold it out in 2 days with 200 people.
So how were you able to back out of Club Soda and switch venues? So
Club Soda doesn't
I
care?
told Club Soda I paid
you can't
them.
handle.
Right.
They kept the deposit, and you're like, sorry.
I
we're
gave
not gonna
them,
do it.
I gave them a $1,500 cancellation, and I moved it to the big room. I said, you can't handle this guy.
Shout out
Agent one-
Patrick, by the way, good
Yes.
friend of mine from Olympia.
Yes.
I love Patrick.
Patrick's the man.
Great guy.
Patrick took me in and gave me a home.
Okay, so you're still.
That's my dude, man.
Yeah,
That's
I know
my
Patrick.
ride
I know
and die.
Patrick from back in the day.
Patrick Levy gave me a home.
We need to bring you and him on here.
Oh man, that'd be crazy.
Because I was telling him about the podcast, and
Yes.
he's always like, "Oh, well, just let me know."
Oh no, he's mad cool. He's been one of my allies. He's helped me a lot when I had nothing.
Yeah.
He would come on, he would back me in the room. He would back me with the artists.
And it's a beautiful venue.
Yeah.
For anybody who's not from our city or who hasn't had a chance to check it out, maybe.
Hell's is old school.
Olympia, de Montreal.
Olympia, excuse me.
Olympia, Montreal.
Beautiful venue. It looks like a grand fucking theater, immaculately clean.
What's the one on Park Avenue that's really Rialto? I think,
Rialto.
Right? That is old school like that too.
Yes.
There's similar like wood style,
Victorian.
cool shit.
Me, I think Olympia's the best
nicest
venue
one, I agree.
for that mid range.
And he keeps investing into his room.
Absolutely.
He doesn't just keep it all grimy and shit.
Absolutely.
He goes and he invests to make his room top notch.
And he's a great businessman and very easy and pleasant to deal with.
Yes.
He owns Olympia, or
Yes, he's one of the owners. He's one of the owner. He's part of the managing partners.
Okay.
That's a better phrase for him. He's one of the managing partners of the room. So he gave me a home, brought me in, and because at that time, Andre Menard and them were still owning Metropolis. Evenco hadn't bought it yet.
Gotcha. So you were still on the outs with them.
Right. So, and then he gave me a room where I could start to do these shows. And at that time, Olympia was like being muscled out of the business kind of, because when Patrick decided to take over Olympia, the Jazz Fest people had the place. And they wanted the building. And Patrick and his partners didn't want to sell it. So they decided they were going to muscle them and try to block them from getting any shows. So Patrick went from doing 15 shows a year to being in the top 10 in the world, according to ProStar, in under 5,000 capacity rooms.
Wow. Bravo.
And yes.
Congratulations.
So he's up there with the Metropolis, putting out shows, like crazy amount of shows per year. So, he went from there. And I was one of the guys who came in the early and started bringing hip hop into the room.
Well, I remember because I was always talking to Patrick even before he launched the project and came in and everything. And then I remember you guys did Action Bronson, and I was with Mayhem a couple years ago. So we had taken him out, and then I think Mayhem just put me on his list. And Patrick was like, "What are you guys doing here? Like, why did you call me?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just came to say hi."
No, he was mad cool. Like my first show I did with him was Black Star. That was my first show I did with him.
How many years ago was that?
Oh man,
I remember the flyer for that one.
7-8 years ago.
That was right at the beginning of me, by the way.
That's right. That's right.
I think that was one of the first ones that I went to one of your shows.
Because I was working with David Hodges.
Right.
And everything.
We've done stuff together.
Right. But David came and watched the show and everything. So that was the first show I did. It was sold out. He loved it, and that was the beginning of our relationship. And then I continued to bring a lot of other shows, and he continued to support me to this day. He still supports me on that level.
Speaking of that, we've gone through, nightmare situations, Biggie not making it through the border. What are some of the most memorable artists you've worked with? Some of the craziest, most amazing experiences
left an impact, right? Because you're like, give me
the events that really just stood out, career defining.
The Roots.
Why?
When we did it in the Savoy. Which is the smaller room in the Metropolis upstairs.
Well, I could see that intimate. Actually, I think I was even there.
That was a 2.5 hour performance.
Yes, and they came through the crowd.
Yes.
They didn't come on stage, right?
Yes.
They came through the crowd like a marching band.
Yes.
You know what's crazy that you say that?
Yes.
And I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I promise, Lemme, I will never interrupt our guests again. That show, to me, was one of the dopest live shows I've ever seen.
Look,
and
I get goosebumps, bro. I get goosebumps.
I say this all the time.
About it, it just
electrifies
me.
It was an
still.
Energy that I had never seen since. I've toured the world with Guru and Gangstar.
Yeah.
I've met Tupac.
Right.
I've had some pretty mind-blowing moments myself,
Exactly.
being next to Guru on stage while he does, all of his classics and just like looking at, and I'm his hype man. And I will still say that show, Rickey D, The Roots, Metropolis was unbelievable. And The Roots, I think, was on their second album. Correct me if I'm wrong. Philadelphia Half-Life.
I'm not sure it was the second or the first. I can't remember. It's a long time. I know I did the show. Was me. Mad shout out to Victor Schiffman from District 6. I did it with him and Andre Lawrence, and we did this show. And this show was off the chain. I've never ever to this day seen a 2.5 hour performance by any rapper, especially a live band. Like this was just one of those like epiphany moments where you just really see what this music's really all about.
Yeah.
And then, that was a crazy experience. Another one was the Fugees.
Wyclef, I was going to say, I hope,
Wyclef,
right?
but Wyclef
Cost
with the
10 years.
Fugees, with the Roots, with Goody Mob.
Ooh, I remember, but I wasn't there.
And Destiny's Child was there.
Nice.
And came on stage.
What was the venue?
It was the Metropolis.
Okay, Metropolis as well.
That's where Sean Pilot had the place.
And Goody Mob was on fire back then.
Was this a tour, Ricky?
This was a tour, and it was crazy. And I met Destiny's Child. I saw these girls with these incredible bodies, and then I saw them with their parents, and I'm like, who are they? Why are they here? and then I'm like, they're a chaperone. That was the mother and the father, Matthew Knowles and Tina Knowles.
I met Matthew back in the day at Sony when he used to have an office up there at Sony.
And he said, yeah, these are my daughters, and this is my daughter's group and all of that. And they were underage, but they had incredible bodies. They looked, in their 20s back then, right?
A 16-year-old Beyonce.
And that day I almost got into a fight, too, with Lauryn Hill's tour manager. Because, they all had, the Fugees at that time now were all starting to have their own tour managers now.
Okay.
And
that was the beginning of the end.
Right.
Shout out to Praz. Praz is a good friend of mine. Actually, I took him out last time he was here a couple of years ago for the Black Film Festival, or Haitian Film Festival, I think it was, actually.
Well, he has kids from a Canadian Montrealer.
Yeah, I did know that.
His kids are, and his baby mother, well, I shouldn't say baby mother, it's the wrong term, but the mother of his children passed away.
Oh.
Yeah, she had
sorry to hear that.
She had MS.
Wow.
And she was taking the medication in the U.S., and that kind of medication will make you have depression thoughts.
Okay.
So she got depressed, and she killed herself, hurt herself. But, God rest her soul, Sherry. But, that was that was a show, man, and I got into a major argument with him. We were going to fight because he told me, Lauren said you could put people on the speakers because it was that packed. Mm. You could put people on the speakers. I said, okay, on the speakers. He comes, oh, what the hell you doing? What the fuck? I didn't tell you could do it. And he's coming, I'm like, yo, man, chill the fuck out, man. Right. The fuck you talking to me like that? She's like, ah. I said, listen, man, fuck you. All right, don't fucking talk to me like that. So then them guys came in and cooled it down and all of that. And I said, go talk to your fucking artist because she's the one who told me to do it.
There you go.
And then I realized she was just an instigator. Mm-hmm. But you know what I mean? Because that was a part of her game, right?
Mm-hmm. So she said, they were at friction.
Yeah, right.
She was like, let me fuck with this guy.
Right, let me fuck with this and fuck up this whole. But the place was crazy, crazy packed. It was.
Fugees were larger than life at that point, and especially us having such a huge Haitian community.
Yes,
this was a hot place for the Fugees, a big stop for them.
And I did some private parties for Wyclef here.
Oh, I could.
That were fucking.
I remember
retarded.
one at Coquino's.
Yes,
that you guys did.
I did one there. I did one at the old Taha Beach Club on Stanley Street on top of Chez Paris. I had to shut it down because it was just. At 1 o'clock, I had to shut it down. It was just too much, and I couldn't control it.
Were you part of the Bell Center show when it was the Molson Center? Sorry.
Yes.
Fugees Tribe in Cypress Hill.
I still have the flyer here.
Yo, I remember that show.
That was a groundbreaking show.
14 years old, and we thugged our way onto the floor. I was there with a couple of my older homies. Shout out my brother TFS, and we went on the floor and we were in the pit, and I had the best. There you go. There you go.
Just lift it up a little bit, Ricky. Yeah, exactly.
I had the best time ever.
Wow.
And I had such a good time. When I came home, I'll never forget, I had an all-white polo rugby, and there was a footprint on my back. Oh, like, that's what a good time. I mean, everybody was so rowdy that somebody was
it was beautiful times, and I didn't even.
Yeah, that was a beautiful show. That and the other standout show, KRS-One. Step into a world, the Rapture's Delight tour.
At the Spectrum. That was retarded. I did that tour with me and Perry and Gary.
And Rascals was the opening act.
And we did Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto.
So I went to another early hip hop story for me before I really was, in the business. I went to Vibes when Vibes first opened, and they did a little in-store, the Rascals. Right. So I rapped for the Rascals manager at the time, Saul Guy. Of course, you know Saul. Shout out Saul. OG. And big pioneer in Canadian hip hop. He was over at BMG at the time. Right. And he was like, you know what, kid? Like, I was 14. You could rap. Like, come to the show with us, roll with us. So I met like the New York City Breaker guys that KRS had brought to do the whole Step into a World part, spinning on their heads and all that. And it was another like Roots moment where I'm like, oh my fucking God. I have never seen one man and a DJ. No gimmicks, no fireworks, no pyro, nothing. Just command a crowd. That was the real art of emceeing. When people say, who's the greatest live performer hip-hop-wise? Yes, Busta's energy is incredible. Yes, LL is incredible. A lot of people sleep on LL, live performances.
I hate LL. He was an idiot. If you ask me who was the worst...
But he knew how to rock the shit,
He knew how to rock the shit. But he was the worst, man. His skills with the promoters and
yes, if he was Hollywood, I never dealt with
Hollywood
him on that
before
level.
Hollywood was.
But he was the original Hollywood though.
He wasn't even there yet, and he was straight tripping. He was one of the worst to deal with.
I do believe you, but I just mean as those old school MCs.
But he could rap his ass off.
Knew how to control the crowd. I'm talking about mic control.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people love KRS. I never thought KRS was in my top, 5 lyricists. But top live performers, you wouldn't think KRS. But let me tell you, that show, he had, and Ricky remembers, the entire crowd, like a heartbeat, 2,000 people like this jumping.
It was a
you never
show.
Saw that.
We sold that whole tour out. We did 3 dates, and the 3 dates were popping. Another great one I did that was amazing, but it was a bit frustrating at first because I thought I was going to have a riot, was Nas, when I did Nas Illmatic.
I remember
And
that.
I brought him with J. Rue, the Damager.
And it was a weird venue, right? What was the venue?
We did McGill University.
That's it.
We did on McTavish Street.
An auditorium or something.
Yeah, their ballroom, McGill Ballroom. We did.
See, that I feel is a security concern.
It was weird because
Tim's, blunts, gold teeth.
everything. It was
but that was the era, right? That was like the
it was something.
The knucklehead era.
He didn't. We were trying to get him out of his hotel room because that night Chicago was playing New York in the Eastern Conference Final, and
when Jordan
that
retired, and it was
motherfucker
Pippen?
would not leave the room, bro. And I had a curfew at McGill,
of course,
and people were going fucking about to go buck wilding up in the fucking place, and I'm begging him, yo, I need you to come, man. I need you to come because he's up there watching the fucking New York getting smoked by Jordan. Jordan was just putting it to them. You know what I mean? That's what Jordan.
I think that was just Pippen.
Nah,
that was when Jordan retired. No,
Jordan was there at that time.
Okay.
And it ended up being an amazing show.
I don't think
because when he came in the room, the place erupted. Right? Luckily, my hip hop peoples, understood who I was, and this is where it goes back to. Your crowd knowing you and you knowing your crowd.
That's right.
Because if they trust you, they will maintain the peace.
That's right. That's right.
If they see you about to let go of it, then they're going to let it off.
That's right.
But they hold it for me because they knew, 1, he was in the city. 2, they knew he was in his hotel room. And 3, they knew he was watching the motherfucking game. And I needed to get him out. And once I got him out, it was on.
It's on.
And he fucking went up there,
destroyed
did his thing, but then he fucking forgot his lyrics. Because he was so fucking high that he forgot a portion of his lyrics I can't remember the song, but he forgot a portion of his lyrics. But it was, for that moment, it was great. Another one that was...
How about outdoor? Well, maybe the biggest, the most tickets sold. I'm curious.
Smoking Grooves store?
Smoking Grooves.
Smoking Grooves was the biggest?
Yes, we did that with Buster and Wycliffe and Maya. Gangstar. Gangstar was killer, man. When we did Gangstar, it was fucking killer with Guru. And then we did Guru alone at the area. That was fucking nuts.
That was me and you.
Yeah. That was fucking nuts.
Jean-Fred came to see me. I think we were up at Solid Gold one night. And this was early when they were talking about, launching Aria and all that. And he says, I hear you with all these guys in New York. Like, who could you bring? And I'm like, well, Guru's my big brother. So you want to start with Guru. And that was the beginning of developing that relationship. And then the owner of Aria would, I guess, give all the, promotions to Rickey to do. Because I was on the road with Gangstar.
That was a yellow flyer we did with
I still have it in my studio.
And then I did him before that, I believe with Gangstar, when we did the Jazzmatazz album.
Yes, but I don't think it was. I think it was Guru, and he was touring with some jazz musicians.
Yeah, I did that. I did that show.
I think that's right before I signed with him, like the year before.
Yeah, I did that show when he came down. That was incredible.
But the Aria shows were great. We all had such a good time.
Great venue.
We all had such a good time. Aria was always another venue that was very supportive of hip hop was Aria because they were competing for a market share. Sona was on its way out and they wanted to establish themselves as the main guys that were bringing in both hip hop and electronic.
Exactly. Jean-Fred, he didn't like hip hop, but he respected it enough to give it to the guys who did. And let them do their thing.
You, me, say, and we had
Gary
a great crew in there of core people.
Right. That was, so I respected that. And at that time, too, I think we were competing with Sona.
And Circus was about to pop
and
up.
Circus was.
And the one in Laval, too, right?
Red Light.
Yeah, Red Light.
There we go.
But we produced some shows with Red Light later on. Yeah. I think it was New Year's 05.
No, I think I might have left by that time. I didn't do any New Year's shows with any.
It was all me direct with them.
I did a few shows at Sona. I did Raekwon at Sona.
I remember that was a good one.
Yeah, I did that.
That was a great one.
I tried to bring
I was there for that one. Huh? Raekwon, I think I was there.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Cardinal at Sona was actually,
but downstairs, right?
Yes,
it was downstairs.
In the basement. Yes, we did that. So
what about? Let me ask you rumors. I've heard a few rumors over the years. Ice Cube getting chased to his hotel.
No, but you know,
did that really happen?
I don't remember that.
Boot camp having a riot.
Yeah, I mean,
when they came,
they in the back of the Spectrum, some guy tried to grab their chain. Same thing happened with Redman, and Redman beat the guy up in the back.
Keith Murray getting into a fight.
That was the show. Keith Murray, Redman, Biz Markie,
Eric Sermon. I'm gonna guess
Too Short.
Oh wow. Shit!
It was called Rap Fest or Rap something 96, 95, something like that. And they grabbed his fucking his chain and he went off, man.
Who was the G-Unit guy that they had pepper sprayed? I think it was Olympia or Telus.
Oh, I don't
There was one guy like cut his set short and there was some pepper. I was at the show and I was mad. I don't think it was you though. I don't think it was one of yours.
Doesn't matter whether it was mine or not. Listen, I've had lamps of mine too. I'm not a virgin, bro. I took all kinds of licks.
Right.
You know, that's hip hop. If you can't take the hit and get up, if you can't take it, don't be in the game. You know, then get out the game because
1,000.
you know.
How is the game now, Ricky? Like, what's changed? What's good about Montreal hip hop right now?
You know, it's a lot of the hipster vibe. It's it's the skinny jeans era.
Okay.
Everybody's on some weird tip. Guys are talking about Marilyn Manson and all this kind of wonky shit, and I'm like, it's cool. It's cool, but it ain't where I come from. Mm-hmm. So I try to relate to it because at the end of the day. There's a lot of good talented guys. Like I like Dave East.
I love
Dave East is one of my favorite new rappers coming up that I love to bring.
He's definitely holding it down for the traditional and the new.
Yes.
Good middle ground.
But guys like Lil Yachty and Lil Uzi Vert, them cool. They got a fan base here.
Hard to relate,
but
though.
they're just on some different shit, man.
But it's cool. Part of that new wave. Who's part of that
kids.
new wave, but is actually really talented? Juice WRLD.
Yeah, but I'm not even saying him too. Like a lot of these guys, I just, I'll take a Buster anytime over there.
Of course.
So you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'll mess with them. I'll fuck with them because that's what it is. That's the name of the game, and you got to adapt. If you don't adapt, then you become a relic, and when you're a relic, then you're no longer useful to anybody else anymore.
Speaking of adapting and evolving, that's actually something I wanted to touch on. You've been in this business for a very long time.
Right.
You've managed to, not only contribute.
I need to get my ticket. Oh my God.
Contribute so much to the scene.
Yeah.
What have you been able to? What has allowed you to stay?
We'll wrap it up in 5.
Stay in the game so long on business wise, because I know you were involved in all kinds of stuff outside of the promotions.
Yeah.
I know you had some involvement in some Domino's franchises.
Yes.
Speak on just what you've learned as an entrepreneur.
What have I learned as an entrepreneur?
Because you've had to adapt. And change and constantly adapt in order to stay in the game.
At the end of the day, I love all hip hop, even though I have a preference over certain hip hops over another. But that's okay. It's like my son, he like more the new age hip hop, but he still likes some of the older stuff too. Mm-hmm. So, but that's cool because that'll be his generation of hip hop.
Yeah.
So I get it and I got it right. So I'm not mad at the situation. I think it's all relevant. Based on what you want to get out of it. Mm-hmm. As a producer of shows, if I want to do a Busta Rhymes, I know what kind of market's going to come for that.
Right. Of course.
If I want to do a Lil Yachty, I know what kind of market's going to come for that too. So, I understand what each artist brings, and then I just try to shape my marketing and my promotion in order to go out there and get those who are into that. So how I stay relevant is by listening a lot to the younger generation, and they're not kids. They're young men and women who are trying to put their name in the game. I'm not going to call them kids because that's a disservice to them being a young man coming up in the game.
Absolutely.
Right? You got to respect those young players because these are the ones who put you on and keep you on.
That's right.
Right? So if you sit up there and you start isolating yourself and calling them kids, which I never call them, because the most I might say is my son, but he ain't a kid. You understand? So there's a difference on that because a lot of these young men and women, they put me onto things.
Sure.
Because, my days of sitting up there listening to the music 24/7 are over.
Yeah.
I'm a family man, so I listen to it. I listen to it all the time. Sirius Radio. I'm into all of that. You know, I'm looking at the different podcasts and listening to what the mixtapes are coming out, what DJs are rocking in the clubs. You know, and then I have my tastemakers, the 14, the 15, the 19, the 21-year-olds who got their ears plugged to the streets, who listens to this shit all day, every day, and they know what's up.
Like, you got to bring this guy.
Yeah. And, you know, and I listen to them. And if it makes sense and I can afford it and if I can get them, then I fuck with it. So
you've always been able to maintain this open-mindedness when it comes to which direction you gotta
be. You know, you don't always hit it on the nail, right? You know, when you're in this business, you're in it to win it. You know, a lot of guys want to come in there. They think that the key to this game is to come with a bag of money and a phone number, and you win it. And, you know, sometimes that could work for you, but a lot of times it don't. But, you know, you can't come in there and get dissuaded so easily. And if you don't really understand the business, then join up with others. Some guys have too much pride, and they want to go out there and do their thing, and that's cool. But pride never paid the bills.
Totally agree on that. And this is a conversation that I've been having a lot lately with a lot of people like yourself who we've been bringing on. And a major reason for us starting this podcast is because I think it's time for all of us to preach inclusiveness, okay, and collaboration. That is the name of the game now. Because while everybody's off trying to be, you know, the dawn of the day and trying to take over shit, nothing progresses as a scene culturally like that.
You know, I understand what you're saying, but on the other hand, I don't like that either. And the reason why I don't is because who would Bless be today if Bless didn't go out there and try to put his name in the game?
Of course.
Right?
We all have to walk that line.
Yeah, you understand?
We all have to walk that line.
And it's important for that because that's how you, as a lyricist and an MC, you know, create your art. You know what I mean?
I'm talking more on a business level.
Even
instead of everybody trying to chop each other's legs and this guy's off doing this and that guy's off doing that.
Even in a business level, I like, you know, that's why I work with a lot of other people.
That's what I'm saying.
I do that because when we do this, it opens up the doors. I don't preach that I know. I don't have a big bank account. You know, I work at a hospital still after, you know, giving 30 years of my life to this business.
Is a passion for you.
This is a passion. This is a side thing that keeps the money rolling in to a certain degree and allows me to feed my babies.
God bless.
And hopefully be able to give them one scholarship that they can take and run with it.
That's a beautiful thing.
I don't know how far they're going to run with it.
But at least you give them a start.
Right. And that's all I could do, right?
That's a beautiful thing.
As a man
You're giving platforms to your kids even. Like, you just give a platform for everybody.
You know, my son, he loves the music. He's not really into it like that. That's cool. He's into his own thing. My daughter, same thing. They're very astute at the music. They understand it. They listen to it. They follow it. But, you know, at the end of the day, they will choose their own way. I came into this business out of a necessity to come out of my neighborhood, Little Burgundy. I grew up in a crack-infested. My uncle died of crack, had kidney failure. I have friends and other family members that have died. I just had an uncle of mine died 2 years ago from fentanyl-laced cocaine, okay? Because the guy he normally buys it from went away to jail, and he went to somebody else, and he got that blow, and that blow was laced with fentanyl, and he jumped out of the bed and fell down, and that was it.
It was a wrap.
It was a wrap, okay? So I came from that environment. You know, I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm a hardworking guy, but I'm getting tired now. I'm getting tired.
We need the next Rickey D, if that's possible.
I'm still out there trying to do my thing because I still got a few more shots left in me that I need to put out there in order to just roll it up, and then I'm done.
You built yourself the old school way.
Exactly.
You paid your dues.
Exactly.
And you sacrificed having that luxury or being that flashy guy to have the longevity, which I think is such an interesting metaphor for what all these fast food rappers are doing now. the culture we live in, everybody wants an immediate result, and they're not willing to put in the work it's going to take to survive in this game.
And this is what's going on.
Because it takes work to survive in this game.
It takes work, you know. There's only a few. It's like the NBA, 283 players, bro. But there's millions that want to be that guy. It's the same thing in the rap game. That's right. Same thing in the music game. There's only a few that are eating real food, and everybody else is faking the funk.
And what I've learned is it's very difficult to push your way in the door, which guys like us have been good. But it's even more difficult to stay in that door. And that's the art.
But you know, people think social media was the best thing ever that came for the music industry. In my opinion, it was the worst, because I'll put it to you metaphorically speaking. You got a fridge, right? If you open that fridge and you got two things in there, you're going to eat one or two of those things. But if you open that fridge and you got 50 things to eat, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to eat anything. You're going to sample a bit, take a bit of this, take a bit of that, or you're going to take what you know. And you're going to leave everything else in the fridge. And that's what's happening. And that's what's happening.
Good music and new projects are becoming like a needle in a haystack. Ricky, do you remember, in order for you to know about Bless, Bless had to have an ad in a major publication.
That's right.
You had to have a record at HMV, and you were already like, okay, let me see what this kid has to offer. Right now, there's no barometer. There's no nothing. Anybody, any clown with a laptop can throw some nonsense onto the internet. There's 100,000 fucking songs being uploaded every day. We cannot digest it.
Absolutely.
So no project gets a fair shake. And then everybody's like, yeah, Ricky's brother's cousin raps and Bless raps and this guy rapped once and my little brother and it's like, whoa. There's levels to this shit. And everything has just become dumbed down.
It's dumbed down. And you got to be blessed, no pun intended, but you got to be blessed like a Drake or something who could create an OVO and then pipeline people through.
But you know what Drake has become? Although I love Drake. I love what he's done for our country. And I think he can actually really spit. I think he's a great artist.
Yeah, no, he's amazing.
But check this out. What you said was, in that fridge, they're just going to what they know. And God bless Drake for him making himself, that brand name. But Drake wouldn't be Drake if he didn't have a genuine love and respect for the culture. So all these other things in the fridge is what made Drake be able to be, you know what I'm saying, that brand name. And all of those projects need to have a lane. All of those projects need to have light.
Look at them, right? If you look at a guy like Drake, who had a history in film, you haven't seen Drake in a film in decades, bro.
I've been wondering why.
And why?
He will.
And the reason for it is because he's in love with the hip hop culture.
1,000,000%.
And he doesn't feel that he needs to do this.
He enjoys that more than being an actor.
Exactly.
And he's already crushing it.
Exactly. And
there will be a time, I think.
Maybe there will.
Maybe later on in life when he's in his 50s and he's done doing records.
Right. And he wants to go back to it and use a bit of his popularity from back then
But what I mean is, we had these outlets, these underground tape kings from New York. The Taboo Disc. We had places we could go discover curated music. Very important, curated music. You remember when we went to the hip-hop section in HMV, there was a guy who would suggest, check out this Guru Jazzmatazz record if you're into this soulful shit. I think there's a major lack of curation.
Credibility, too.
Credible curation. Exactly. So everybody's throwing everything at the wall, and the consumer is confused.
Well, now what it is, it's the blogs. The blogs are sitting up there, and they're trying to take that position as being, but the blogs are so overwhelmed that if there's no payola, or there's no real interest, they just got no time for you.
And back in the day, there was 5 people you had to grease: radio promotions,
that's right,
retail,
that's right,
conventional media, and some club guys,
that's right,
or a guy like you.
That's right.
Now there's fucking 50,000 guys you have to grease. There's hundreds of blogs, hundreds of weirdo playlisters.
And you have to pay for your social media likes in your Facebook, whatever.
It's a never-ending black hole that can take millions from you with no tangible result.
You literally have to, as an artist now, be extremely lucky in terms of your timing. Yes, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Agreed.
And you have to be ready for when that time comes.
At all times.
Right? But you have to be, because when you look out there and you see the multitudes of amazing, talented artists who are not even getting a fair shake at their artistry, it's sad. And, you know, but I love the time we're in too, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. I look at French hip hop. French hip hop has grown exponentially in this province.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, you had MRF, you had KCLMLP. They would come to the West Side, pick up the street knowledge of it, and then take it back over to the East and introduce it. When I say East and West, I mean English and French, right? And they would take it and bring it over to there and start to plant the seeds over in those communities. And these were the and the Louds and the Dead Obies and the Enemas, the Mike Shabs and all these guys. They have to pay homage to these guys, because these were the guys who took it over and introduced it to their community.
We actually just had a couple episodes ago, my boy Carlos, who owns Joyride Records, who Loud is signed to. He's a good friend of mine. And we were talking about that evolution of, everybody wanted to look to what France was doing, and now we're starting to export. So those barriers are slowly melting away, just like Drake was able to do, on the English side with the States. I believe there will be a time where we will have quite a few, not just Loud, quite a few French exports.
See, the problem that I see, my insight onto it, is that when I look at the community now, once, you had MRF, KCLMP coming board, then you had the Dogmatics and
the Sans Pressions
and the Mozions and the Sans Pressions, and these guys come and they opened up. The reason why France has not been as receptive to French rappers so from Quebec is because of the language, and French, because we tend to speak more of
we dumb it down
slang here. It's not well received over there, and the reason why it's not well received over there is because before you could be popular anywhere else, you kind of need to be popular in your own hood.
Sure.
If you don't rep your hood and your hood don't love you, then how you think you're gonna go into another man's hood and get that kind of love that you're not getting? You got to be extremely lucky, like Camaro. But Camaro was Arab from France, who came to Quebec, who grew up here, and then took his shit back over there and made it work for him.
Was able to work, yeah.
Same thing for what's his name there, Cornet. Another one, African born, African raised, came here.
Culturally, they were placed well in French culture.
Right. Over in France, they knew the dialects, they knew the mannerisms, so they blended in easier. And they introduced a North American version of street rapping that the Frenchman didn't really know at that time.
So then what's your take on, now Loud, he's starting to get booked a lot in France.
Loud to me, and like I've always said, right, Loud to me is at this moment, you have to rate him. No matter what you say or think about him, I think he's a talented artist who, in fact, will be, once he does his show, the first French Quebec artist that does rap to go into the Bell Center as a headliner.
That's right. Local artist.
Okay? Yeah, local artist.
That's a big
big push.
Not one, but two shows.
You understand? So how the hell are you going to sit up there? You can't diss this man.
No, never. But the game has definitely changed, and that's why I bring it up, because whether it's the borders are melting away because of social media, information is traveling a lot faster, people are mixing a lot more. It's not as territorial as it once was. I think that stigma is slowly fading away. And I think because of, like you said, the luck came with the preparation and the timing, it clicked for him. I think like we're seeing once Drake blew the doors down, then you had Weeknd and Tory Lanez and Party Next Door and so many producers, and a lot of people are on now from Canada. And this is an interesting thing. Back in the day when I started, and certainly when you started, it was unheard of. Canadians to be exported to the States. The culture wasn't there for it. Now you hear dudes from Atlanta talking about, I'm not from Canada, but I do my thing. Like American dudes, like from the South, saying shit like that. We never could have predicted that. And I had this conversation. Do you remember Spec from the Dream Warriors?
Of course.
Spec is a big deal now. He works in publishing.
No.
He works in publishing. He's based in New York now. And I had a meeting with him, and we were talking about this, and he said, "Damn, Bless, I remember when you came out with Guru and I started with the Dream Warriors. Did you ever think that there would be more sessions happening for talented producers and writers in Toronto than in New York right now in terms of placement opportunity?"
Right.
It's a wild world. And I'm so happy to see Quebec is finally, leaking outside of the local market. Canada blew the doors off, and I think it is a very interesting time.
If there's one guy that I'm happy to see there, it's him.
And that crew's incredible.
Because he's put his work in.
And shout out my brother Rough Sound and A-Just and all the producers who've worked to make Loud's project stand out. From
most importantly, you got to thank Loud, because Loud was the catalyst to take all of this and to make Quebec and maybe hopefully the world say, "Hey, I'm here." How do we take this and transcend this where everybody eats the fruits?
Ricky, I've been saying the same thing. Me and Carlos privately have had many discussions and many nights out, and we have been talking about this. And I'm so happy that you were able to come on and put shit in perspective in the unique way only Rickey D can. And we need to continue this conversation.
Yeah, that's cool.
We need to continue this. Thank you so much for being here, my brother.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for all your contributions.
The chicken was good.
Thank you.
The chicken was fantastic.
Make sure you make some more of that next time.
I got you next time. Next rap show, I'm coming with chicken.
Yo, you better come with some chicken. That chicken was delicious.
Respect, brother.
My brother, thank you for everything you've done for the culture. Thank you for everything you've done for the city.
Thank you.
And continue to crush it, my brother.
That's all I do.
I know that.
All right, man. That's beautiful.
You want to sign us out, Bless? Moment of truth.
Moment of truth, M.O.T podcast. You know what the fuck time it is. It's your boy Bless, my co-host Lemme-Kno, and of course the notorious Rickey D, Montreal's own. This week on the M.O.T podcast.
Respect.